Patterns in the fossil record. So you may wonder, how long does it take for a new species to arise? When do we say a new species is formed? When is it no longer a member of a species from which it's become reproductively isolated? And in general, we say the process is very long. But we know that rates of speciation seem to be inconsistent. Meaning, in some taxa, some lineages, we see a very long period from the fossil record over which changes may have accumulated very gradually. In other cases, we may see dramatic shifts or changes because of some event, like, for example, the KT event that the Alvarezes explored, if you read that chapter in Into the Jungle. So, Niles Eldridge and Stephen Jay Gould were two paleontologists who coined a term punctuated equilibria to describe how we can have long periods of stasis or not much change occurring, and then they're punctuated by sudden change. And they actually stole that idea from plant evolutionary biologists, paleobotanists, but, they were the ones who put the two 50-cent words together and called it punctuated equilibrium. So, while some people, in some cases, we may see a gradual model where divergence happens very slowly over time. In some cases, we see in the fossil record, bam, all of a sudden, as if overnight, there's two very divergent species. So we can look at the fossil record, we can look at lab studies and try and come up with a sense of how long does it take to make a new species. So one species of sunflower, Helianthus anomalus, we know from looking at the DNA that it originated from two parents, and it wasn't a simple case of polyploidy, but because the same number of chromosomes are present in anomalus as in the two parent species, Helianthus annuus and Helianthus petiolaris. But what has been found is that there is a lot of mixing between the DNA of these two parents in the progeny. So even though they have the same number of chromosomes, we see evidence that there's been a lot of crossing over occurring between the gametes in the two parents. So how long does it take for a speciation event to occur? In some taxa, it can occur relatively quickly, on the order of 4,000 years. In others, for example, some beetles, it can be very, very long between speciation events. So you might wonder, how many genes does it take to describe something as being a new species at the genetic level? And it also, again, it depends on what the question is, what the species in question is. A single gene may be enough to affect a reproductive barrier. For example, in Euhadra, which are snails, it's very similar to that case where we looked at with mechanical isolation, with the spiraling of the shells. In some cases, maybe it's that a single gene can affect a phenotypic characteristic that leads to that reproductive isolation. So monkey flowers, which are closely related to snapdragons, they're in the genus Mimulus, we know that there are a couple of simple loci that affect flower color, and that's going to affect the pollinator preference. And pollinator preference is a form of reproductive isolation. So if you're pollinated exclusively by hummingbirds or exclusively by bumblebees, that's going to reproductively isolate you from the other population. But sometimes it takes multiple genes and many interactions to effectively generate new species. So it depends. So here's the case with Mimulus, these monkey flowers. You can see here's Mimulus lewisii, and here's Mimulus cardinalis. You can see they come in different colors, and they are adapted for pollination by different organisms. So this is a bumblebee pollinated species, and this is a hummingbird pollinated species. And scientists have been able to hybridize these species and get different alleles into them, and they find that when they make Mimulus lewisii redder, it attracts a lot more hummingbirds. And the same with Mimulus cardinalis. When you have it look a little pinker, it's going to attract more bumblebees. So how do we get from speciation to the evolution of new phyla, new kingdoms, new domains? It's just a matter of the frame of reference we're looking at. How many different speciation events, how many different extinction events have to occur? But it seems like it's part of a continuous process. It's a continuum. So it's not like you say, well, we've got these 3 new species that are so different that we're going to call it a new family. It seems like it's a process of divergence that can occur at many different time scales, leading to new, larger taxa. All right, that's the end.